thank you all for joining us today on this panel discussion on the platform for Wisdom for Life and Leadership. Also on the platform Hip Hop International H2I. Really excited when we get opportunity to present content like this to the public and really kind of help us to ascertain the wisdom that is needed for our lives, for our leadership, for the things we're called to do. Hopefully that we can make impact on the world around us and maximize our talents and the things that are within us. My name is Shay Ola. I am the curator for Wisdom for Life and Leadership, as well as Hip Hop International. And I'm excited for this opportunity to bring some great panelists to the forefront. These are friends, family members, a lot of things to me, but yet still they're great professionals that have accomplished tremendous things in their respective fields. And so I'm going to just go around quickly, just around the room and just introduce my panelists this evening, just because I think that it's really noteworthy to make sure that we give honor where honor is due, right? But no, these are really, to be honest, these are really great people that have been doing great work in the community. And I believe they have a lot to share with us today that I believe is it's going to help us in our own journey, in our own process as we go through this. A lot of this content will be shared. Obviously, we're sharing on Facebook Live right now on Wisdom for Life in Leadership. We will later on also put that on YouTube as well for more people to be able to access this information and this content. And so if you have any questions for any of our panelists at any time, drop that in the chat and you'll have opportunity, especially for those who are on Zoom, for us to be able to address some of those questions down the line. Well, for my first panelist I want to introduce this evening is Yinka Ladeinde, who is family, my sister-in-law, I guess, if I can say that, right? If that's official enough. But hey, you have to claim family sometimes, so it's all good. She's one of the family members I like to claim. So some others maybe I won't really mention them as family members, but she's in my good book. No, Yinka is a tremendous talent, a Nigerian American voice actor, audiobook narrator based in the East Bay, which is in San Francisco area. Yinka's voice can be heard on commercials, promos, e-learning, corporate narration projects for companies such as American Express, CNN, Fox, American Medical Association, IBM, Lexus, and the list goes on and on. And she has been a tremendous talent and a great inspiration to many. She's also she's an up and coming influencer. Let me not say up and coming. She's actually an influencer already. So like, y'all stop playing. Put some respect on Yinka's name, right? No, she went viral this year, right? She had a great inspirational quote that went viral this year, and we were super excited for her. When you have those viral moments, we have some of our other panelists also have gone viral as well at different point in time in their career. So it's one of those moments where you just wake up one day and you're like, wow, I'm all over the place right now. so it's tremendous to see what Yinka's been able to do just on a lot of levels as a voice actress, and also being able to be an influencer and really kind of spreading a message of love and positivity, and also being her faith and in Christ as well, being shown in such a way that is tremendous as well. She has a background in performance, singing, spoken word artist. She's been nominated. She was recently nominated as a newcomer of the year as One Voice Awards 2002. And represented by Atlas Talent Agency. So Yinka is tremendously accomplished in a short amount of time, and it's just to show her talent. And I'm really excited to have her on here. There's something she's there was something that I just saw recently that she was, she was asked to speak at, I think, at a conference, and there was some notable. I'm not going to mention the person's name. There was a notable person on that panel as well. I was like, oh, okay. You didn't came up in the world. That's great. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So Yinka, thank you so much for being here with us. And you guys are going to hear some really, really great stories and a part of her journey today as well. I have also the privilege and the honor of introducing PeQue Brown, my brother from another mother, right? And really, I really mean that. There's two brothers from another mother on this call right now. So yeah, I'm gonna give the other brother another chance as well to give him a shout out. But no, PeQue is a tremendous artist that hails from Gary, Indiana. If y'all don't know anything about Gary, Indiana, you better put some respect on that as well. That's the home of the Jackson Five. You know, some great talents came out of Gary, Indiana. Let's not forget that. I actually visited Gary, Indiana, and visited that home. The Jackson, so a great place. But a fine artist, PeQue developed his eye and owned his skill as an artist in the armed forces, as a community leader, as a youth mentor, as really a visionary. My journey meeting PeQue has been more than a decade, and when I met him, he infused me with a vision with his group. And we travel the world, and literally mean that. And PeQue is not just if you meet him, yes, very humble, but yet still incredibly talented. And the man uses talent and on all levels. And I've been glad to call him friend. He has been subject of featured in television shows, films, commercials. Over the last 35 years, PeQue's body of work includes mural commissions for Vice President Kamala Harris, Hall of Famers of Landon Donovan, Kobe Jones, for the city of Los Angeles, a mural tribute to the late Kobe Bryant, which actually made a lot of news at the time when that came out, when the Black member was suddenly was deceased, and we're looking for people that can really pay tribute, and PeQue was commissioned as one of the artists to bring some really great artwork that was seen around the world. He's founded Liquid Art Studios, both in Los Angeles, California area, metropolitan Atlanta area as well. So ATL and LA, right? You know, he's doing it on both coasts. In all art collective aimed at providing guidance to disenchanted youth and young adults from just across the world using the arts. PeQue is a true activist, and I don't use that word lightly, but really a man that does the work in the community. But beyond that, a tremendously accomplished artist that is known around the world, literally. And his work speaks for him. This is a man that one day is in a gallery somewhere in LA, it's another gallery somewhere on the East Coast, and doing great work, and his work is sought out by many. And I love the fact that PeQue has the ability to convey his art, not just in one medium, but in multiple mediums. And so in that as well, I've always called him one of the great minds, in terms of both visual, theatrical arts. It just does a lot of things, songwriting, and just tremendous talent that is well accomplished, that has also brought many others into the field, into the fold as well of artistic expression. But also I'm very proud of him too, is his accomplishment as an entrepreneur as well in this particular field, and really helping many really grow in that as well. So I'm really glad to hear from you, PeQue. You're welcome on this platform today. Yes. Give him some love. Give him some love. Give him some love. Yes. My brother Jahmal Holland on the line today. I don't even know where to start with Jahmal. Like both just as I'm going to start as a human being before I read off his resume. Right, as a human being, he's one of the guys that I I can hang with it anytime. Just we see eye to eye on many things, similar to PeQue. Like I think you get to a certain age, you realize that it's really rare when you find people that you gel with at so many levels. And I've been so privileged to know him, created art with him very early on, even when I probably didn't understand my own specific voice. But Jahmal is a tremendous talent that has been able to scale different stages in its artistic expressions. And if I tell you like this guy is multi-talented, I truly mean that. I mean, everything that he's done, he's excelled at, at a very high level, from music to film, just you name it. Jahmal has accomplished these things just effortlessly. I mean, I think talent uses from him, but I think what I also appreciate about Jahmal is that he's an intellectual. Like if you get around Jahmal, you start hearing him talking, like yeah. Art. He's an artist in that, but really a true intellectual and academic. His mind, the way his mind works is just beautiful to watch. And I think that's informed his art. And obviously his background as well is one of those things that really impresses me tremendously because of the way Jahmal is. Jahmal is an award-winning filmmaker who creates visual and narrative stories through drama, documentaries, and music, right? His first directing effort was a viral music video that attracted an interest from CNN, Discovery Channel, Intel Electronics. So I told you guys there's other folks that went viral on here already. so I remember actually when he went viral, that was actually a really cool moment. And he's had multiple viral moments since then as well. His first featured film was released in Nigeria called Still Standing. It's still available on Amazon Demand. He earned a nomination for this movie for Best Screenplay and an award for Best Diaspora Film. His University of Southern California, so I don't want to get it mixed up with University of Southern Carolina. So there's some folks Southerners out there, they're going to think we're saying something different. Let's put some respect on USC, right? I'm about to say the real USC, so I'm not going to get some people offended. But USC, University of Southern California, one of probably the best film school in the world. Got his master's from there. And his thesis film was Spanish Fly in 2015, which is still streaming on Amazon Prime. And Jahmal's most recent projects include directing an award-winning short film, The Anthem of Our Souls, writing screenplays for featured films, development, The Greatness and the Brackish Waters, directing a short film, The Turnaround in 2019. Jahmal's attributes is diverse in storytelling, from film to music, and to really kind of interacting ethnic culture, social justice, and just so many other things as well. Faith into his work, and so he's multifaceted in so many ways, and being able to impact so many people along the way. I've been one of the recipients of his work and the work that he's been able to do and continue to do around the world. And so thank you again, Jahmal, for being on with us. A Bay Area native. So yeah, give him a round of applause. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on. All right. So we're gonna jump into this time and really kind of just opened us up into this our topic this evening. Really it revolves around two things, and I believe that they're not necessarily opposed to each other. I think sometimes we look at it that way, but I think it's a matter of how we actually position ourselves to understand how to do these two things. I think every artist at some point in time, every true artist at some point in time is going to ask themselves, okay, do I go for the money or do I stay true to the art, right? And and that's a tension that some of us deal with at times in this journey. And I think our panelists are well positioned to really be able to answer some of this. And so, really, if we're framing this evening, it is, I'll simply put it like this: it is artistic integrity, versus financial viability. Or maybe they're not really necessarily opposed to each other. Maybe there's a place where they actually can be married together in a way where you can still achieve both things. And so I think my panelists are very much attuned with that tension. That I call it that holy tension, right, between those two places of being. And so I'm going to open this up really quickly here and just ask on the first question to my panelists and to see kind of get your sense on it. So for all of you guys, and you guys can answer this as you please, when did you first realize your passion for art? When did you feel like man, you cut the bug, right, for what you're doing right now? And I'll open with let's work backwards. Let's start with Jahmal.
So the bug, it's really been my whole life. I used to, I don't know if I'm freezing. I used to sing, around the house and for family members, when I first learned to talk. Probably before that, I just don't remember that far back. I remember doing it when I was really young, though, like 2, 3 years old. And that continued on all the way to high school. We used to do, like a lot of Black kids and Black families, we used to do our little talent shows for the family get-togethers. And I was always, really, at the center of doing that kind of stuff. And all the way into, like I said, high school, I used to put on breakdance performances, community centers and talent shows and school events. And, I used to teach classes unofficially with younger kids, younger being like only a couple of years younger, because I was like a 9th grader teaching 8th graders and 7th graders and stuff. And, then you go out with your cardboard and battle, I didn't win all the time. I didn't win most of the time. I ain't gonna lie. Everybody tells these stories. They're always the best. How could everybody be the best? Somebody had to not.
Someone had to lose, right?
You know what I mean? Just, maybe don't have to lose, but you can't always be the best at everything, And that's the story of a person that could tell you exactly that I didn't win all of them. But there was a white kid actually in my school that used to win. He won every single battle. People would come to our school and battle us, and we would win because of him. And then they would leave, but they would recruit him into their group. So this kid was in like 7, 8 groups. So if you can't beat him, join him. So they always wanted to join with him. I didn't get recruited. so yeah, it took a minute. So, but I do think that as I wrap up my answer to the first question, I do think that there's, related to what you said earlier about this tension between like the art and the business, I think there's always a sort of an all or nothing interpretation of this stuff. So like, if you're not, Bruno Mars, then you shouldn't be doing music. You know what I mean? Like, you could earn a living, without being that. You know what I mean? And so the idea that if you can't, our measurement for the value of art and creativity and, the role of an artist and whether or not you are or should be an artist is really skewed. Like I said, I took a lot of L's as a kid. So, taking an L is not the reason to quit. It's just the opportunity to perhaps, explore further levels of creativity, you know? And so that's you know, you said effortless. I started laughing. There's a lot of effort involved. You know, taking L's as an adult too. You know what I mean? But, as you mentioned, we had some wins, you know, so you being able to push through,
That's right.
you know, it's been the real story.
That's good. No, good answer there. PeQue, I'll come to you with that same. I'll come to you with that same question.
I don't remember not having a passion for art. I don't remember not being excited to do art. It's always been something that just kind of came to me. I'm the last of 13 kids. So all my siblings happen to be, or I shouldn't say all, but the majority of my siblings have some kind of artistic ability. If they don't sing and dance and draw or something, they do something, you know, something creative. Got writers and all kind of things in the midst of the bunch. So it just came. I thought it was something that I thought everybody's family sang. I thought everybody's family drew. I thought everybody's family danced. And, you know, we thought we were better than the Soul Train dancers, you know. So, you know, all that, you know, that's what I grew up with. But I don't remember how the conversation started, but I remember at some point my father found out that I wanted to be an artist. And I remember him saying that you can't be an artist because artists don't make any money until after they're dead. So I remember that being an extinguisher for me as far as thinking like that I could follow art. Fast forward to, I joined the Navy partially because somebody told me they had artists in there, and I thought maybe I could sneak into the art field in the Navy some kind of way. Ironically, that happened. So I was able to actually get into the art field, but not before I was a medic for 7 years and had a life-defining moment where someone asked me, one of my colleagues asked me, as they were offering me all of these different opportunities to advance in the medical field, one of my colleagues asked me, which job would I take in the medical field? And I said, whichever one pays the most, you know, because at the time I had 5 kids, so I was trying to pay the bills, you know. And so that, you know, that didn't actually go over well with him. And he said, man, what's your passion? And we were actually driving to work. We were we were carpooling to our job. And he said, what's your passion? And that was foreign to me. I never heard of passion in relationship to me before. So I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and I was like, I don't know. And he after he made me understand what passion was, at least in his definition of it, I told him, I said, the only thing I know that I want to do like that is art. And this man stopped his car and he's put his finger in my face. And he says, if you don't become an artist, if you don't figure out how to become an artist, you'll be miserable the rest of your life. And I didn't have to look far to realize what that meant because that was my father. My father, what I learned later, had been a frustrated artist and he was absolutely miserable. And he was, you know, if we had a dog, he would have come home and kicked the dog and, you know, whooped the kids or whatever. But he didn't have a dog, so he just kicked us and whooped us, you know, at the same time. But that was the beginning of me getting on the path to finding art, and it was absolutely a divine thing that happened in that way. So that's my beginning of finding passion.
That's great. Yinka, we're coming to you with the same question. Thank you, PeQue.
I've been told that I was born kind of a wild child, just a clown from the very beginning. I went through so many phases. I started out wanting to be a singer, and then I wanted to be a writer. I actually won the Young Authors Fair in 2nd grade. I wrote a whole book. It was a thing. And then I went through a phase where I wouldn't, you know, pay attention in school because I would just be drawing, and then back to a writer, and then I remember I always did love, you know, acting. We went to go see a show called The Toy Maker's Dream a gazillion years ago. It's kind of like a it reminds me of the Nutcracker, but like Christian version. It shows like, you know, Jesus, the creation of the world, blah, blah, blah. And I remember just being so enthralled by that. But, you know, because I was going through all the different things that I wanted to do, I didn't really come back to acting until high school. And I realized I was probably, I want to say, better at acting than singing. And then later on, I went to this program, this internship, faith-based internship, and then they forced me to start performing poetry, and that's how I got into doing spoken word for a while. And yeah, I just, and then I went, traveled around the world for a while, and then came back home in 2012 and got a real job, and basically just started dying slowly on the inside for about 9 years. And until the pandemic happened. And throughout this time, I started listening to audiobooks in like 2010. And then there was one audiobook that I listened to. There was a performance. I remember I was driving to work, and this narrator I wanted to pull the car over and give her standing ovation. It was just so good. And I was like, oh, I would love to do that. And then, so I had always thought like, I would love to do that. I wonder what to do. And then at the end of 2020, I was like, you know what, let me just look and see how this goes and try to put one sample out and see what happens. And kind of blew up, and I ended up doing a lot more than just audiobooks.
Yeah, it's like, thank you, Yinka, for that. I think that one common thread that we see in all of your stories around your passion is it started early, right? That we all have dreams on the inside as little children, right? That we kind of grew up with. We envision ourselves being something, and especially if you're artistically inclined, that those things started early inside of us. And now, obviously, as time goes on, we all have a little bit of that creativity inside of us. But at the time comes when you realize, man, maybe, as Jahmal said, maybe you don't win all the battles, right? But you do realize that you have something special on the inside and a specific ability. Now, the world can be cruel, right? We know that. And we know that people get knocked down, and people sometimes, as PeQue said, it's because the fear. They don't want you to go through what they went through, right? You know, the whole concept of you don't want to become a starving artist and frustrated artist, or whatever artist you want to put, whatever you want to put in front of an artist, right? And the reality is that, you know, but remembering our passion is an important place to obviously start, right? But obviously to have sustainability, to say, okay, this is what I want to do as a career, that's a different conversation, right? We all have passions. And you might have even gone to own your passion. Maybe you went to school, maybe you got some training, some mentorship. I think those things are always very, very important. Like everybody sitting on this panel right now, yes, they have talent, but they also worked at it. It wasn't just they just woke up one day like, hey, let me just start doing this, right? They put some time, there's time equity, financial equity, brain equity, whatever equity they could put into it to make this also to own your skill. So that's that as well. But passion and all these other things does not necessarily make you good at actually the business of understanding how to run your own business artistically, right? And so that's an important like segue for us. But let me ask this follow-up question for us. And that is our, for most of us, right? We when we go through this phase of like our passion, the next question I want to ask is, when did you realize that this can actually be a career that you can pursue and economically sustain yourself or financially sustain yourself?
So
that's how we Yinka. Yeah, Yinka's hand raised for a moment there. I know PeQue was about to go, but Yinka, go ahead.
I had no idea until I started making money. I was like, oh, you guys are gonna pay me. great. I would have done it for free, but if you want to pay me, I will take it. So when I when I realized that I was competitive enough to compete and actually get jobs that pay good money, and then I realized that my day job, the real job, was actually getting in the way of being able to make the other money that I actually enjoy doing. I was like, oh, why am I here? It's time to go. So yeah.
Wow. That's real. PeQue. No, thank you, Yinka, for that. Like that's real. Like when you realize they can actually pay you. I like that.
That's awesome, Yankee. That sounds like, when they gonna pay me? Like, that's great too. So for me, it's the exact opposite. Like, I pushed, I scratched, I hollered, I pulled, I did everything to try to get, money in the world of art, and it was unfindable. It just kept, like, I was chasing it, and it just didn't seem like this was something that was going to happen. And honestly, it really wasn't until I got to a place where I said, even if I don't make any money at this is what I love, and I think this is what God would have me to be doing. It wasn't until I got to that point that the money found me, and I began to get compensated for what I love. And then it was like, Yinka, it was like, oh, what? You gonna pay me how much for this? So yeah, that happened after I chased it for a long time.
No, that's real. That's real. I mean, something you're chasing all this while, like, and it seems to elude you, right? And in that moment when you're reminded of your purpose, why am I really doing this? And then kind of changes your focus a little bit, right? It's interesting how everybody's journey is, like, to get to that place, right? But I think one thing I would say for both of what you guys said, before I even hear what Jahmal would say, it's like it's a process of self-discovery, right? That takes place for you to say, "Whoa, I didn't even know this is possible. I didn't know I have this specific abilities where I can go up for a job and compete." Because I know for Yinka, you have to audition against a bunch of other people, right, across the country, around the globe, and you got to beat them out for that job, right? So it's not like just handing it to you because they think you're a nice person, right? You got to win. You got to compete and go across. Jahmal, let's hear your response to that same question.
So it was kind of a few dominoes that fell, and I'm going to try to go through this pretty quick. So it wasn't such a light bulb moment where, like, all of a sudden people started giving me money or anything like that. It was really more of like a recognition of what the landscape was. I went to Nashville before us three went to London with the other 15 folks that went. That year I went to Nashville, because of Gospel Music Week for my music career, right? This is before full-time film. And when I went there, this is 2009. And so this is early spring, end of winter, early spring 2009. So we're right after the big economic collapse, right? Big crisis that happened. Like during the election, there was a big economic crisis. And so this is the immediate aftermath. It's Nashville, it's Gospel Music Week, so it's the heart of that genre, that industry. And so I felt very strongly that, I was supposed to pay for the conference. I didn't want to pay for the conference. I just wanted to go down there and rap. I didn't want to pay. That conference cost $400. I didn't want to spend $400 on this, but I felt like I couldn't get any rest until I, agreed to do that. And so then I'm sitting there trying to figure out what's going to be the fruit of this labor, this $400 labor I'm engaging in. And it wasn't nothing like I thought. I thought I was going to meet like, a record label owner or agent, because I was in the conference where they're supposedly all going to be at. But that's not what ended up happening. Was two things. One, I went to a touring seminar And in the seminar was all these bigwigs that were not just gospel industry bigwigs. They were like entertainment industry bigwigs, like, you know, big execs from CAA, Creative Artists Agency, you know, and some of the other major labels that are not just, you know, they're not subdivisions. They're like except for the labels that were there. And Ticketmaster execs were there. And these are people that, because of the economic crisis, were all attending this event themselves because they're out here shaking the trees just like us artists, right? So ordinarily they're sent to underling to the joint, but they're there themselves. And so so they're in the room, and you know, they don't know how to give a seminar apparently, because they're not talking about touring at all. They basically talking about ancient beef they have with each other, and they never had a chance to air out. So all of us in the seats were sitting there going, hey, yo, should we leave? Or, you know, y'all want to have this private discussion in private, or y'all gonna have it in public, or you gonna have it in public, huh? So we're sitting there, you know, and it wasn't really till weeks later after, you know, after we went to London and came back that I started to actually digest what I experienced. The other thing was in the same seminar series, well, not seminar, but that conference, I attended another seminar where they were talking about tools for independent artists. And they were telling everybody like, well, you know, you want to have certain embeddable links so people can find your music, find your website, find your socials. And this is some sites you can subscribe to. And this is a paid, you know, it's not that much, it's nominal fees and all this kind of stuff. I'm sitting in the back because again, I really want to attend. I was attending because I felt like I paid for this, so I should go. But I didn't want to be there, you know. But I'm sitting in the back, and I raised my hand, and I'm like, well, you could find those types of same tools on this other site for free. So now I'm basically teaching the seminar, you know, because I have been, you know, I have been living this indie artist life. I had just started this, you know, you two guys remember specifically, I had just started this kind of label industry life, you know, but I have been doing this indie joint for a minute. And so, you know, all the stuff that I had as an indie, but because of an economic crisis, now all these people have to try to this indie hustle. They're unfamiliar. They're trying to hustle up a class to teach it, but they're unfamiliar. And so I'm like, well, actually, this go here, go here, go here. And so like even the moderator of the seminar is hanging on my words. And I'm like, you know, I was planning to just point that out and stop talking, but now they're like waiting for me to say the next thing. So that happened. The third thing and final thing was I attended, and this is where it starts to transition into my film career. I attended a talk where the vice president of NBC Universal was giving a talk. And they introduced him and about his story career. He told an amazing story about reinvention, having come out of the music industry as well at a much higher level. He had done, you know, audio engineering, you know, mixing for like people as big as Michael Jackson, you know, Teddy Riley, you know, and all this and that. And he had, but then the studio, the big studio sort of business industry collapsed. And this is ahead of the music industry collapse, you know, but this is all part of that, you know, that Napster era. But it was also fostered by the home studio era, right? Which, you know, as we look at Yinka's marvelous setup, you know, this situation exists because of the demise of a previous situation, right? So, you know, you represent that guy's previous career's death right now. So shout out to you. But so he had to reinvent himself because he wasn't getting work as an audio engineer, as a recording engineer, the way he had been. And so he starts teaching at a junior college, and then he gets permission to go mess around on the film sound mix stage that he, you know, and so he teaches himself how to mix movies, and that led to one thing and another, and he becomes and all of that story he told in the context of how he felt weird when they introduced him as having a great career. And he's like, you know what, actually, I guess I have had a career. But what I've really done is string together enough gigs and projects to pay my bills year by year. And so I developed a vocabulary through those three things that I just described for what it means to be an independent artist, you know, and to actually earn a living at it. that it's not, I said earlier, it's not an all or nothing thing. Whereas if you're not, attending the Grammys every year and putting platinum plaques on the wall, that, you're nothing. It's really about like doing good work and doing it again. You know what I mean? So
that will preach. Doing good work and doing it again. So the ability to rinse and watch, right, and to kind of put it back out there again and staying true to your art and the things that you need to do. That's really good. That's really good. Has there been a moment in your all of your journeys where you felt that an offer was put on the table, but it went against your specific moral code, goes around your beliefs, your own integrity, and you feel like, that's good money, that's a good opportunity, but I don't know if I want to go there. But maybe there's something I don't know. Have you been in that kind of conundrum where you felt like something was presented to you and you were like, sounds cool, but I think I'm gonna pass, or you were kind of stuck in a place where you were trying to consider whether or not this was the right move for you? And I'll open that up.
not so much that there was an offer. It was more of a conversation about what kind of thing we might do with a series concept, or what we might do, or who I might collaborate with on a song. I've come a long way in terms of what I consider within my boundaries. But pretty early on, I had attended another seminar, a lot of seminars in the days.
You like them seminars?
I mean, I find myself in them. So how I feel about them is another question. But anyway, I had a guy who was he's a recognizable face, recognizable actor. I was just watching a movie with Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon the other night, and that guy was in it prominently. And he was talking about being a actor of faith in this industry, and how he didn't have a problem playing, certain types of people, or maybe people, even wicked people, because they exist in the earth, and it's life, it's part of life, and so then there's other people that had certain more strict boundaries than him, at least the way they described it, and I kind of have taken that same, or similar, not same, but similar tact when it comes to what I feel like is authentic. I definitely don't go out of my way to do things. Every moment has to be earned in a story. This story is, I might have a little bit more of an abstract relationship with fictional characters, narratives, because to me, it feels like what the piece wants, what it wants me to do, where it wants to go, more than it often feels like where I want it to go. And I try to be true to that, so that I'm not being either inauthentic in such a way that I am driving a narrative. I don't like when I can hear an artist standing inside of their art yelling at me or trying to make a point to me beyond the art making the point organically. I think that it's, those types of things have a certain kind of place, but, art has to be artful. And so if you're not doing it artfully, you're just using art as a means to say something like propaganda or something like that. That's inauthentic. And I'm very antagonistic toward that, or doing something that I think the audience wants me to do, or a specific audience wants me to do. That's pandering. There's a balance when it comes to trying to be sellable when you start doing stuff in an industry. And I think about that stuff every day. If I get a gig writing for HBO, there's going to come a point where I'm going to have to come up against my ethics, my moral code. Well, at some point, you know, and people are like, well, you know, you got to change it for, it ain't changing for you. You know, if you want to go and get a job at Hostess and try to convince them to sell hamburgers, they're not going to do it. You know, if you're trying to sell them grandma's recipe for cake and you mad because they changed grandma's recipe, you're not working for grandma. You work for Hostess. You're about to make a Twinkie right now. So you should go ahead and embrace it or find another job. So, you know, the question really has to do with whether or not I want to work at HBO. You know, if I work for them, then, you know, if I could get to the place where I could sell them my piece, then it'll be my piece from my heart. If I want to go get a job working for them, whereas I write the piece or I sell them the piece and then I get a job writing it, that's not my piece anymore. I sold it. You know, and so I look at those things in that manner. And if I don't want to do certain things because it's against my code or something, then I shouldn't go there looking for work. So I think that that's the compass. Shay, you muted. Shay, you're muted.
I have a thought on that, but I'm going to reserve it. I'm going to ask PeQue, then I'm going to go to Yinka on that question. I'll come back to that. My thought on that, what you said.
And I must apologize because I did not hear the question. A collector came to ask questions of me, so I missed the question. I just came in on the end of it. So if you could restate that question.
Yeah. The question was, has there been a moment when you've been challenged on, you know, trying to see what your particular ethics is compared to maybe the job that you're being offered, where you kind of had that tension of not knowing, do I take this, or something was offered to you that you knew that maybe you didn't want to go with, or you felt like conflicted with your view or your code, you know, your moral stance on that particular issue, or maybe your artistic stance. You know, sometimes it's not always, I wouldn't even say not, I'm not even going to always frame it as moral. It could be your artistic stance. Like someone wants you to make it cheap art because, hey, you can make a lot of money from it, but you feel like, I don't make that kind of art. Like I have this type of art that I make. I don't know. I mean, you know, just kind of see where, when you face things like that.
Well, absolutely. I've been challenged both artistically, and I've been challenged morally to create art that was outside of my artistic purview, and definitely outside of my moral values. And I've had to, very similar to what Jahmal just said, you know, I've had to kind of parcel things out and to figure, is this, am I being authentic to who I am? And that's what it's come down to, especially as of late. I don't do things at this point that I don't want to do, like, period. Like, and I didn't always have that ability to turn down work, or at least I didn't think that I had that ability to turn down work. But actually, once I realized that I absolutely always had the ability to turn down work, and then it became liberating, and then the right jobs came. I can tell you of one time in particular, I was asked to do a job, and I'll just say it point blank. I was asked to do pornography, to create, and it was the way that it was brought to me, it kept being like downplayed, like, well, this isn't actually, you know, pornography. It's just nude women and nude guys together, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I can't see myself doing that. I can't see myself doing that. You know, and they were like, well, you don't have to sign your name to it, you know, but it pays really good. And I was like, yeah, but I would know, you know, and anybody that knows my work would know as well.
That's you, yeah.
And so, you know, but beyond the fact that anyone else knows, you know, God would know, and that was the, you know, I guess that's where integrity comes in, and it just didn't make any sense to me to try to do something like that, you know. And at the time, I could have really used the money. The rest of the story is an opportunity came in for me after that was better than the initial opportunity that I was, you know, that they offered. So, but it wasn't right away. It didn't happen, you know, within 2 weeks. It was maybe, you know, months later, but it took care of, you know, that time period that I thought I was going to be struggling. So, yeah, that's my story with that.
Well, thanks for that. That's always that's an interesting tension and being able to make the right decision. Yinka, we're coming to you. I know you've been getting a lot of work of late, and you have different obviously avenues and people offering you all kinds of stuff. What have you been able to do to navigate through that? Just shoot the same question I just asked earlier. Just looking at where you are and how do you make those decisions?
I mean, thankfully, the majority of what I do is in the sort of marketing commercial realm. So with that, I haven't run into anything that would challenge my morals or artistic anything. I did get I did get an offer for basically reading for a erotica porn site thing, short stories and stuff, and that was easy to turn down because they weren't even paying enough money for that to even be an option.
Not enough money, right?
That was an easy hard no.
That was like, okay,
like no. But I know that they're, you know, like, so they're with audiobooks though, there are like romance books that could kind of challenge and get close to the line of like, is this okay? And to be quite honest with you, I'm still finding what my limit is and what, like, trying to find like, okay, what's okay, what's not okay, what do I need to, you know, because in the very beginning I was just like, okay, great, and you don't really know what's in the book until you start reading the book. And then you don't realize that, like, wait, can I say no now? Wait, I can't say no now. And so it's one of those things where I'm getting better at it and becoming a lot more smart, wise, whatever, from experience, and being able to know, like, okay, no, this is my limit. I don't do those kinds of books, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a ongoing process for me at this point with that.
No, that's good. I think you guys all said something about kind of knowing yourself, knowing what you're willing to say yes to and what you're willing to say no to, what you're going to say no to. But I think Jahmal mentioned something I think is very important, and it may be one of the reasons why I'm sorry to say it this way. Sometimes, at least for those who come from the Christian faith, sometimes Christians have been accused of making cheap art sometimes. And I think part of that is because there's something that he said. It's like you have to actually be true to the art. So if I'm looking at an artistic expression or a work that I'm about to do, and you know what it demands me, down the line is going to cause me to compromise. Maybe it's better for me not to even try to go down that route than to try to go down that route and then try to like finagle my way in there. Then you look honest, you're not authentic in your expression, right? We see that in films, we see that in all kinds of, you know, in music, where people will try to say, okay, well, I know the logical conclusion of this is I know I can't be true to this the way I want to be true to this, right? So now I'm going to try to create a cheap imitation of this thing rather than saying, you know what, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm going to choose to do something different. I remember some years ago when drill music, like drill rap was very huge, like coming out of Chicago. And I remember, drill is kind of huge internationally right now. And I remember some people trying to make Christian drill music. Now, if you understand anything about Christian drill music, it's about guns. It's like violence. Like there's not a lot of like finagling of drill. Like drill is going to lead you a certain direction. And if you're not willing to sell out to that cause, you're going to look cheap trying to do this type of music. And so the reality then becomes that creativity is endless. And I think when we find people that are actually doing art that comes from them and their own specific conviction and their own viewpoint, where they can actually artistically execute, right, with integrity all the way through, it's going to sound, even if you're doing Christian content, people are going to mess with it because there's something authentic about it. It's soulful, right? The word soul is not just someone singing R&B, right? Something being soulful is something being heartfelt, genuine, coming from the inside. And I think that is so important, I think, in terms of what you guys are saying tonight. And for anybody who's hearing this, kind of being able to kind of direct yourself in that kind of particular way. Jahmal, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, but also a little bit of the general conversation on this question. There's a lot of like learning curves that people, should endeavor if they want to do something professionally, right? Like, and if you're going into art, you got to understand your medium, you got to understand, your genre specifically to, if it's music or film, there's genres, there's subgenres, and you understand that there is such a thing, you understand the elements that make it up, that it's more than just, your creativity, is the craft involved, like this is the vocabulary that this genre entails. And I read a thing and I can't find it. If anybody is familiar with it and you want to link me to it, it's cool. I'm going to keep looking. But it was 10 years ago I read this thing. It was about the elements of drama. And it was saying that there's 10, which isn't true, there's more than that, but it was talking about 10 that relate to real life. And the closer you get to 10, the more authentic your piece will come across. When certain pieces seem thin or low budget, or like this is a B movie, a lot of times it's because it's missing those core elements, and it only has a few of them. And you mentioned that earlier when you were talking about, people trying to create a sanitized version of some other thing. And it's like you could take out certain elements, but you have to replace them with other ones. You have to, how are you making that up? And it goes into my approach to creativity in general. Like if I'm not gonna have, horror elements in my piece, in my work, then what type of elements am I gonna have? I read a horror script, and so that's one of the things that I have any interest in doing. I'm not interested in horror. I read a horror script a year or so back that I would do because it had a really great story, and it had a message about generational trauma and certain things that I'm personally interested in, and it didn't have other elements that I generally stay away from. Instead, and then the ones that it did, they all felt earned. It felt authentic. And so that was like, if I was going to do a horror piece, this will be one that I would. Get Out is one that carries those types of things, and it doesn't have certain other things that generally associated with so-called horror, right? And so the point being that if you're able to do the work to make up your operational deficits of like, your moral or ethical avoidance of certain subject matter, what are you doing? Because you're stepping backwards from ground zero when you're saying, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. You're stepping backwards. So you're at a deficit. So how are you going to make up the ground? You can't just go, okay, I'm just not doing that, and now I'm going to do my story from here at like -10, and then start telling a story in the negative and be like, well, how come you don't like my story? It's because you in the world, you worldly, It's not worldly.
Your story just whack.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You're impoverished. Storytelling is impoverished,
No, that's good. That's good. Let me ask this question. And I'm going to go to Yinka on this, and I'll go Yinka and PeQue real quick. And I'll switch the question and bring Jahmal back on this second one question. But the question is this: what practical advice? Oh, sorry. Before I ask this one, why are there many starving artists as we would call it out there? and why do we struggle understanding the business side of our craft? And you give, why are there many starving artists out there? I mean, there's many starving artists, right? So we kind of mentioned that earlier, and it's not to make light of it. I know people are genuine and they want to do right, but sometimes it's just hard to understand. And I'm speaking from someone who's actually also understanding finance in the banking world and helping people understand how to set up business, the business of your craft, in being able to be economically viable. Why do we struggle with that? If I can maybe get you both of your help on that real quick.
Well, I mean, from what I've seen with people, and I'll just say with my industry, I don't know about other industries. When I was starting, what I heard so many times was like, only 20% of people who start this business will even make it anywhere. And in my head, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be that 20%. Here's the thing. What I've seen from people coming to me, wanting to get in, is some people, they just need to work on their craft. Number one, they're not competitive. Some people, they're kind of not willing to put in the sacrifice that's necessary in order to really put the work in, / lazy. Some people are just lazy. Some people just don't know what to do, and they don't know or not willing or are not willing to do the research necessary in order to get to where they need to go. And some people, I mean, a combination of all of those. And then some people, it just a lot of it could also be financial, because what I have noticed is oh, the business sucks. If you don't have money, if you don't have resources, if you don't even have, like, some people, it's like, do I pay my rent, or do I pay for coaching? If you don't have the finances to do it, or the connections, it's very, very difficult to get in. So it's oh, my camera went off. I don't know why. So it's a very, very, it's complicated.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Yinka. That is, you mentioned elements there. Either they're not dedicated enough. Maybe they need to up their skills around their craft. Maybe they don't have the way to kind of invest into it properly, so that they can actually begin to benefit from it. Those are things like PeQue. I'll come to you on that same question, please.
Yeah, I think, man, Yinka, shout out first of all to Yinka for having the right equipment to be on a Zoom call. I mean, man, it sounds amazing, but imagine that, a voice actress sounding amazing on a, you're supposed to. But anyway, let me, surely I digress. Listen, one of the things that I've noticed in my field is that artists use their creativity to create the art, but they don't use their creativity to find work and to make it work for them financially. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint, those are two different skills. It's one thing to create art. It's one thing to dance. It's one thing to sing. It's one thing to act, or whatever your genre or discipline of art is. It's a completely different thing to do the business of art, which also requires a level of creativity. And I can tell you, it's extremely challenging to spend all week creating a piece of artwork and then try to spend the next week trying to figure out how can I sell this piece of artwork. And it requires a lot of educating yourself on the venues that, where do artists go to sell? It requires you being a student of your craft beyond just honing your skills, but as far as like, who else looks like me or is doing the kind of things that I'm doing, and how do they sell their work? So I think that's one of the greatest challenges, is just being able to educate yourself on how other people in your industry are selling themselves. And that's what it is. Ultimately, people don't like to sell. Most people tell you, I'm not good at sales. If you're an artist, then you need to do one of two things. If you don't like sales, you either need to stop thinking that you're going to monetize your art, or two, you need to learn how to sell yourself. Actually, there's a third thing. You need to hire someone to sell for you if you can't sell yourself. And that's, that means you probably need to be independently wealthy because it's expensive. Back to Yinka's point.
You have to sell yourself to them. Hey, damn, we're getting these people to come in for free for the future earnings. You're going to have to sell that.
Yeah, you can sell that, right?
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Jahmal, we'll come to you on that question, but the way I want you to take it from here is what practical things, and I know they gave some of the elements of why people become starving artists and maybe not able to turn it around, but what practical advice would you give? Because you moved from a specific industry to another, and you kind of understood the independent art life, like for a long time, and you kind of went through different stages to that. But if you can give practical advice for someone who's hearing this tonight, or maybe hearing it some other time, maybe who starting out, or maybe they've kind of like advancing their career, if you want to switch up a little bit, what practical advice would you give them in monetizing and maybe at least being sustainable, in their artistic pursuits?
I think it's more, and again, in terms of why they're starving artists and what the approach is that I would suggest or advise is about the perspective on what it means to be an artist needs to change. People generally, whether they're people of faith and, God's calling me out here. So, okay, he's calling you to come to Hollywood. What does that mean? Is he calling you to come here so you could be the next Beyonce? Is he calling you to be, the next person to sweep the Grammy Awards and have your name in every board? Is he calling you to take over, or is he calling you to be here and be among the other people that he's called to be light in certain places? And if that's the case, which is what I actually think, and what the result of that is to be left to the result, but in the meantime, what you're actually being called is to the specific field to plow. And so plowing your field and tilling your field and, and overcoming the adversity that goes along with that. Certain people have their crops rained out certain years, or there's a drought and the crops don't produce at the level that you expected them to produce. If there's a pandemic or an economic collapse, I had to help the label owner that signed me, and I thought was the beginning of my music career taking off. I could be Kendrick Lamar before Kendrick Lamar was known. I had to help him get off as an independent artist by teaching him where the indie distribution outlets were and what the differences were. And all I was actually being led to do was to take, and you will remember this, I was being led to stretch my tent pegs wide to bars to place in my tent. That's literally what was going on. I thought that enlarging the place in my tent was, somebody else is going to bring me a bigger tent. But that's an actionable directive, right? That's active description. It's not passive, whereas somebody else is going to come along with the tour bus until you hop on, right? We starving because we waiting for the tour bus to come by our spot and pick us up where we at. What we actually have to do is start assembling tour buses. Whether it's taking out loans for vehicle purchasing, or if it's working your way to be able to amass the resources to get a tour bus, or whether it's making the relationship connections so that there's people that want to host you on your tour or come see you on the tour. If it's doing the legwork, whatever, in whatever capacity is the point. You know, plowing your field, you know, not putting your hands to the plow and looking back. Well, this is, you know, it rained. Nobody told me I was going to get flooded. And God, you know, and, you know, you got your friends and family members that don't know what artist life is like at all. And they're going to tell you that God was with you, you wouldn't be struggling like this. But there's nowhere in the Bible that says that. And neither stories in the Bible that reflect that. Mostly it reflects the other thing. It reflects struggle and endurance. So actually plowing the field and actually committing to the field that you've been called to is what that means. And so, you know, people starve because, you know, it's not, you know, people starve because the world is hard. You know, it's not always, I don't want to make it sound like I'm pinning it on them. It's like you're starving because you suck. I'm not saying that. I'm saying people starve because it's a rough road, you know. We're in a time in history that is very difficult. Specifically, like I said, you know, it's a pandemic. People went to film school at my alma mater and couldn't even make their films, or the thing started in the middle of them and they had to stop, pick to some other thing and graduate online. And then, you know, we had certain deals in place, whereas my career would be in a much more lucrative place if we didn't have shutdown the week that we're supposed to put those deals into motion. You know, with household names, you know, whether it was studio names or whether it was execs within the studio spaces that you heard of. You know, I was looking at, you know, the beginning, and all of those things washed away. But you don't quit, you don't move home, you don't go like, well, I guess God wasn't in that. You plow the field that you've been assigned. You know, you pick up and you know, we've gotten back into position. You know, we and myself and my wife, our team members, we've gotten back into position for even bigger things to take place. But even if they weren't bigger, it was just the idea of how do you continue to be faithful to where you've been placed, where you've been planted. That's the results are not your concern. You know, the results are your faithfulness to the endeavor. You know, I mean, your concern rather is your faithfulness to the endeavor. That's not really the most practical thing. I think it's just more of a attitude or perspective, like I said.
No, that is really good, Jahmal. I think that perspective is important. I think it counters the pessimism that can enter into the pursuit, right? I mean, I think all the things that were mentioned earlier are important, but it's important to juxtapose that against the reality that if you're pursuing this, there is, especially for those of us who are people of faith, that perseverance is actually a virtue, right? It's not a curse, right? And that sometimes that God is bringing us through certain things, maybe to teach us what we need to go through, help us kind of, you know, fine tune where we are, sharpen our tools in a way, to be able to help us do that. I truly believe that there is wisdom that God wants to release in each season for the things that we've been called to do, right? And I mean, the reason why we call this platform Wisdom for Life and Leadership is really part of that, is why we have discussions like this, because we're trying to help people in their journey be able to ascertain the wisdom that is needed to navigate those seasons when you want to, maybe to your point, quit. The pandemic was hard for a lot of people, especially for a lot of artists that are independent. You're doing work and things just kind of like poofed in the air, right? What, you know, you couldn't go to the studio, you couldn't go anything. I mean, I know people wrote a lot, people, you know, pivoted into different things to discovered other things to do in the industry. But I think it's making all of us stronger in that process, especially if you're letting God use that to kind of build character within us into that particular journey. And so thanks for bringing that perspective into place as well. I want to ask as we close this out.
Practical thing that won't take as long as the
That's fine.
effective thing. It's recognizing your direction, which has to do with recognizing the field that you've been called to. And if you recognize your direction, then it's easy to say yes to things that are in the direction that you've been called to go in, and easier to say no to things that are not. Because distraction is another reason why starving artists happen. You know, you start in the wrong thing, thinking that, well, I it's indie hustle, I gotta hustle. It's like, well, you gotta hustle in the direction that you've been sent to hustle. You definitely don't want to hustle backwards. You hustling backwards is not the answer. So that's a practical thing to go away.
That would preach. Hustle in the direction that you've been called, right? That definitely preach. Yes, Jahmal is preaching tonight. Yinka, give us some practical tools as well for yourself. What practical things? Obviously, you came into your own in the pandemic. You discovered something that you're like, oh my gosh, what practical things can people do tonight? Like going from this place. Hear what Jahmal said. What else can we add to that on a practical level for folks?
Practical things specifically.
Practical things to help them, being able to be sustainable in their particular pursuit, financially, and being have that viability financially to continue to do the work. Whether it's a perspective, it's something that you say, hey, do this, hire an agent, cut your agent off.
All right. I mean, honestly, be your own agent. Because agents are great, but you can make money without them. It should be a situation where you are making money, and if an agent's going to come along and we're both going to make money together, like we're going to make, I'm making money regardless. Do you want to make money? Do you want me to make money for you or not? Like that's my attitude. Anyways, I digress. But like practical things, research, soak up everything. Do as much research as possible, join groups, get to know people who are in the business. It's kind of like when you're learning a language, the best way is immersion. You're listening to it every day. You are, I literally, there's this app called Clubhouse. And when I got started, we were all in the house and everyone was in the house. So, all the voice actors, these big name voice actors are on Clubhouse giving away free information to everybody. I lived on Clubhouse. I listened. I got to know these people. I rubbed elbows, so to speak. I soaked up so much information that when I would go to coaching sessions or classes, it was like, oh, I already knew that. So-and-so said that for free on Clubhouse. So, I mean, yes, it's not necessarily that way anymore because the world has opened up, but there are other, do whatever you have to do when there are, workshops, when there are free events, when there are discussions online. There's so many things that you can get right now that are in your fingertips, people that you can follow on social media, giving away free tips. Soak up all the information that you possibly can, and that will help you go so much farther. It will help you sidestep certain lies that people tell you, stuff that may be outdated. It will help you in your career go a lot farther than if you just sort of started running without having any like knowledge. You will probably fail unless you're very lucky or blessed.
Let me ask you a quick question. You've been able to leverage social media to your advantage in your career. Now, I mean, I know we're joking around earlier talking about content creation and all that, but how have you been able to leverage social media to be able to do some of the work that you're doing and even have more influence and be able to kind of continue to expand your work using social media?
It's actually kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because I did not go into it thinking like, oh, I'm gonna try to be an influencer. It was literally, I didn't really have a lot of time to do it before I quit my job, but then once I did, my strategy was, okay, I'm really shy and people don't necessarily know everything about me. Um, I want, before they meet me in person, I want them to feel like they know me. So everything that I do, I'm just going to put stuff out there so that people think that so that people know my personality and they feel like they know who I am before they even meet me. So by the time they meet me, it's like, oh, I remember, oh, you did that thing. And it's kind of crazy how well it worked. Just trying to make content. And also I am an avid social media consumer. I am that person that will watch YouTube vlogs of people just like, yes, Kelly, shy. I am that person that will watch, YouTube vlogs of, someone making lunch or going to do, work at a cafe. Like, I love that stuff. So for me, it's like, well, I'm just going to make content that I would like to watch myself. And it has helped because I try to do things that will also have people hear my voice and hear how I do voiceover. And so that's sort of like a twofold strategy marketing. This is what I would sound like if I was describing your product. This is what I would sound like if I was narrating your book, but I'm narrating my life. So it's sort of twofold. Yeah. And it's worked out really well. It's been working. Apparently I have a brand. Okay.
That's pretty cool. PQ, if you're on, I know you're doing work. You've done some stuff on social media, and I know Jahmal actually creates content for people, recording and putting things on social media as well. PQ, so you speak to a little bit of how you've been able. I saw your podcast that you started online, and in the work that you're doing there using. Hopefully I'm not frozen. Yeah, go ahead, PQ.
Yeah, using social media has been it's like free money. A lot of people complain about social media. Oh, they talk about the algorithms and things like that, and they complain. But there's Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Instagram and TikTok are probably the place where artists like us belong, probably the most. With that said, there's so much to say, and I'm trying to keep it really succinct. Take it for what it's worth. You're not gonna build, you're not gonna go viral, with your first video. It's not likely. Okay, it's not likely that you're gonna just, hit, pay dirt. Oh man, I'm going and they just love me. They don't just love me. It's gonna take some time for people to see you and follow you, unless you're Yinka, of course, as Kelly said. But the fact is, what I've learned is that you have to slowly build. Look at other people, see what everyone else is doing. I love what Yinka said about, even with Clubhouse, being able to find those people who are there. You can find professionals who will teach you what they're doing in a free space. Find those places. It's not just in Clubhouse, it's everywhere. There's so many different places where you can find your peers or people who you want to be your peers, giving free classes, showing you how to do it. So this is an amazing time. You cannot compare yourself to other artists in terms of how you're growing. What you have to do is find your lane and not only just stay in your lane, but make that work for you. Like find your tribe. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the people who you can connect with, who are going to understand who you are. And you may not know who that is at this point, but finding that group is, it's a learning experience every day. just, in the midst of this Zoom call, a group of people just connected with me, and they're like, "Oh, that's amazing what you're doing, and I just love it and all that." It's wonderful. I'm not dismissing it, but I'm saying I have learned, I'm learning that people that look like me, that are in my age group, are connected to the work that I do. Big surprise, huh? Well, then I need to continue to create things that I love. And that's what I say to artists, continue to do what you love to do, because you're going to find your tribe of people that you're able to speak to. And once you find that tribe of people that you're able to speak to, whether it's through social media or what have you, then that's when you're able to really live out your purpose and to be able to share the love, the light, the salt, all those things that we're trying to give out to the world. That's when you're going to be able to do that. I hope that was succinct enough.
No, that was. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Jahmal, can you answer the same question, please?
There was a couple of things that PeQue said that I wanted to piggyback on. Then I kind of what he said was that succinct, because that was clean. That was real sad. I did see, to answer the question from my own perspective instead of piggybacking on him, I can't. I did watch a clip yesterday. I had a friend of mine in school told me the importance of continuing to work on your game, and he recommended certain YouTube channels that he follows. So I was, I found my own. I was watching the clip, and it was talking about the importance of writing what you know. And then he said, I would like to amend that write what you know thing, which is a credo in this industry, to say write what you have specific, clear, and unique perspective about. And the unique part might be more subjective, but at least that you have, clear personal understanding, empathy for, or specific experience with. So, I wrote a script about a Japanese kickboxer who's female. I'm not a kickboxer, I'm not Japanese or female. And so it might seem like, okay, well, that kind of flies in the face of what you just said. What it actually is about, though, is about relationships. It's about family trauma, and it's about learning to trust your own compass. It's of, predatory people. And so I do know about those things. And this character have, as a writer, as an artist, a certain perspective to be able to write from, creating a character that's much different than me on the surface. But underneath the surface, she, most of the people that have read it haven't identified this, but she's most like me than anybody in the story. And so writing what I know is the navigation of those hazardous specific spaces. What I could connect to what PeQue just said about not comparing yourself to others. I went to USC for film. One of my schoolmates wrote Creed 2. Another one of my schoolmates won an Oscar 2 years ago. Actually last year, and then another one was nominated 2 years ago.
Wow.
So comparing yourself will be the death of it. Fortunately, I had gone through that in music already. And so by the time I went to this place, which is way worse for that kind of outcome,
you are ready.
I was better prepared, put it that way. So I definitely have certain days where you kind of go, man,
What am I doing out here?
Oh wow, right? But it's not crushing. It's not devastating. You're able to be happy, not envious for your peers that are succeeding. And you also get to perspective finally, which is some of these people were on a certain career arc path when they got to the school.
When they got
and
to the
I was
school.
on a certain career arc when I got to the school. And the school has allowed me to level up the arc that I was on. But I haven't been able to get to the level of some of these people. But some of these people were already like British Directors Guild. I didn't even know what the Directors Guild was before I went to the school.
Before you got there.
The American one was, you know, these people, the British one, some of them were execs at BET, Def Jam, you know, Disney, you know, and so like the biggest names on earth, let alone the industry. And so
you're already there, yeah.
Already on a different career path than me. And so for me to come in there expected, because I sat next to them in class, that I should be in the same position as them after school is unrealistic. You know, thinking of yourself with sober judgment, we're told in scripture, not thinking more highly than you are. Well, I went to the number one film school on the planet, so therefore I'm just as qualified. Right? And I got to direct when I was there, he didn't. So I might be better than him. Right?
I should be better than that guy.
I might be better. I'm not saying I am. I'm not saying I'm not. You know, I might be. All that kind of inappropriate, like, right, lack of perspective versus sober judgment, understanding that, okay, this is where I was going and I'm not here. This is very far in comparison, right? Versus where he is or she and in comparison to where they were. If you know, I've yet to some of these people intersect their path where they were before the school. So having a proper perspective on where I am versus where they are is crucial.
Where they are, yeah. No, that is very powerful. That is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that perspective kind of and helps us kind of close this session. Thank you guys so much for what you have been able to share around your journey, where you are. Before I ask you guys to share maybe your parting comments or statements, I wanted to open it really quickly. If there's anybody that has any questions in the chat, if you want to drop a question for our panelists, something that maybe is burning on your heart that you want to ask, be careful what you ask. But I'm just kidding. But please feel free to do that really quickly. We have people in the house today that have done different things, in different journey, whether you see yourself as an amateur, if you see yourself as someone who's actually being pursued art in different levels, and you find content here that is important. I think that we're going to put this out there. PeQue can't stop laughing right now. So we don't know. Maybe you need to let us know why you're laughing, but maybe I don't want to know.
I'll bring something to share with the class.
You got the finger out. You got the finger like, nah. So it's been good. Any questions, please? A question. Let me look at the chat real quick. Q&A. Like that, you could do that. Thank you so much. You can be active in the chat. Unless you're Yinka. Kelly is chewing jabs this night. That. Any other questions, comments? All right. I'm gonna. It's all love. Any closing comments, please, as we
I just want to say I was being harassed.
Tonight. Thank you so much.
I'm just saying that I was being
Yeah,
harassed.
perhaps. Okay.
There was some side
That
harassment
wasn't you. Wasn't me. That's good. Any closing comments from my panelists?
So
Am I
if I
hearing anybody?
could, I just want to say that if your desire
Any
is
thoughts?
to do art, if you desire to launch out in any of the arts, then go for it. Because that desire that you have is probably not self-driven. It probably comes from the Lord, you know. And if you seek it passionately, if you seek it like it's a job, if you take yourself serious, you know, without being overly scriptural, I will say this: the word does say to ask, to seek, to knock. And I believe if you ask, seek, and knock sincerely, as you seek this thing that you love to do, what spoken word, whether it's, you know, your genre, whatever your discipline, I believe that God will answer and he'll open up doors for you. But it's really incumbent upon you to first take that step, because as the other panelists have said, nobody's going to come and beat a path to your door because nobody was looking for you. And at some point, you know, because somebody told me that, you know, yeah, you were purposed to be an artist, I thought that was going to happen. Like, people are just going to beat a path to my door, and then I'm going to be like this amazing artist, and it's going to be all gravy. But that didn't happen. It took me to work really passionately at what I do, and to give my best, not comparing myself to anyone, not looking to be anybody else's best, not trying to do what other people do, but doing what I was best at, being able to expand on that, to be able to push the limits and make myself the absolute best that I could be. Not better than others, just better than me. And people didn't really beat a path to my door, but people did come knocking, and that was the difference.
That's good. Thank you for that, PQ. Ruby had a question. How did you guys get discovered? Is that what the question? The question is? I saw that. How were you discovered or found? Am I stating that question right, Ruby? Panelists, how were you found? How were you discovered? I guess is the
Well, first,
question.
since my wife asked a question, so it was a interesting process. We had a town hall on race and inclusion when I was in school. This is 2016, and then the year the Oscars So White controversy went viral. Yeah. And so we had that, you know, obviously it was a film industry issue. And so that school wanted to take it on and address it and sort of meet the needs of the kids that were in the school, or people anyways. And so I live tweeted it. And I got a lot of attention from my posts. I tweeted, Twitter was syncable to Facebook at the time. So it was going live, you know, my tweets were going live on Facebook at the time. You can't do that no more. And so that really raised my profile in the school. I had, you know, the editor of Cotton Club was my editing professor. If you ever seen that movie, it's a classic film. It was very influential on me. I was a super fan of this guy, and plus he was like the nicest guy, you know, on the campus. RIP. He took an interest in me based off of that. My writing professor took an interest in me based off of that. It was an interesting process. But one of the projects that I'm on, the biggest project that I'm on, was looking for a writer, and he was advised to find a writer from USC because of the profile of the school. He searched USC film and my tweets came up. So he reached out to me. Guys also from the Bay Area. He found my picture of the BART train in my Twitter header. And he's like, if you're not from the Bay, you wouldn't even know what it is. So that also made him feel connected, familial connection with me. And I've been developing this project with him for like 6 years.
Wow.
And so found me on Twitter because I went ahead and said the good and the bad and the ugly at that town hall on the internet. One of the things that I tweeted about that had gotten a lot of like response was one of the other Black students introducing himself as another Black student's name, because they always call all of us by each other's names. And so I said, I tweeted out, hey, hi, nice to meet y'all. This is, Tommy. And everybody understood that was at the school what I was saying at that point. And so that kind of was one of the examples of things that really got a lot of visibility. So that kind of stuff really put me in a position to be connecting people that were looking for. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yinka?
I feel like I'm still waiting to be discovered.
Really?
Honestly, oh my God,
They don't believe you right now.
I don't feel very discovered yet.
PeQue don't believe you right now. He's like, you're already discovered. You didn't be found.
Well, then I guess it's just the days on Clubhouse. I would go up onto the proverbial stage where you can talk, and I would just like sit there and maybe just not talk and listen to everyone else talk, and like maybe throw in like a couple words here and there, and then immediately afterwards feel like what I said was dumb. Or I would, if there was like a formal panel, I would go and specifically ask a question so that people just got used to seeing me. So I guess maybe that's how I got discovered. Or I mean, on TikTok, I had a video that went, I guess, viral, from a spoken word I did about having audacity in the new year. But I don't know. I feel like I'm still somewhat unknown. I don't need to be famous. I just want to be rich.
Kelly, that's a quote. Kelly, that's a quote for you. PeQue, take us home. Take us home.
Yeah, I think as artists, it's a series of discoveries. Okay, you are discovered out of in a circle of people that is not typical. I found you there, and so that you were in that circle of people, as a voiceover actress, that definitely said to me, you're discovered. But it continues to grow. You continue to build your name. You continue to have more discoveries. So when was I discovered? I could go way back, and so I'm gonna not get ridiculous and say, I was first discovered, in my hometown. But that's really it. Like first I was discovered by my hometown people that I was an artist, and then I was discovered amongst the Navy, and I gained fame in the Navy as like being this artists that could do this, that, and the other. And then I gained fame in San Diego, and it just kind of grew. But when did I gain international attention? I don't know. It just kind of a series of things happened. Not to wit, also the Kobe mural happened, and people that never heard of me came to know me not only nationally but internationally. But I did I didn't want to get attention off of doing the Kamala Harris commercial, but that brought also another level of discovery for me. So it's just different. You'll just continue to do work in different groups. Just the mere fact that we're talking about being discovered, people are discovering you. And so, when was I first discovered? By my art teacher in the I'm sorry, in the ninth grade. Yeah, that's when I was first discovered.
That's pretty cool. Well, thank you all so much for that. I'm going to share their contacts on the screen right now. Is there anything you guys are doing, any new projects you have coming out that you want people to check out, and where they can find some of your work? And you can go in no particular order, real quickly.
I mean, you can find audiobooks that I've done on Audible. So there's that. I have a book coming out on the 22nd. It's a young adult romantic comedy book. So yeah.
Cool. Jahmal?
PeQue and I have a film screening at the TCL Chinese Theater next Sunday. Short documentary on a mural project PeQue created in the city of Carson at Benita STEAM Academy Elementary School. It's elementary school. He did 7 murals on that campus in partnership with the LA Galaxy and Landon Donovan, legendary soccer player, football player, if you're not familiar. We're premiering at the historic Chinese Theater. I'm going to measure my handprints against some of the celebrities whose handprints are out there next Sunday.
That's awesome.
Oh,
PeQue. Oh, you got okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm going to be a speaker at the Voiceover Atlanta conference, as well as on the panel, not a speaker, but on a panel at the Voiceover Atlanta conference, as well as
heavy.
as well as All Access. I will be on a panel for the All Access Voiceover conference for radio imaging in April. So yeah, there's that.
That's huge. Thank you. PeQue. Oh,
so I'm currently at the Pan African Film and Arts Festival in Los Angeles. I've been on a couple panels there. I have another panel before this ends, and I believe that is Sunday night at the Pan African Film Fest. And in addition to that, I've got a few projects that's coming up that I'm really excited about. One being, I did an event a few weeks back, Two Dudes Doing Art. So I was introducing a new artist, and we are working with traditional art and augmented reality, which means that we're learning how to animate our art, and we're doing art shows doing that. Finally, I'm going to be in my hometown. That's way down the line, but it's in July, and looking forward to being able to go back to my hometown. I get to do a mural in my hometown, Westside High School. Woo woo! they call it Westside Leadership Academy, but those that graduated, you know, there's Westside High School. So I get to do a mural there. We're going to do some work with the youth there, and it's going to be a big deal to go back home and get to be a native son and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I said finally, but I do want to go back to what Jahmal said. I'm really excited about next Sunday, not this Sunday, but Sunday, the 26th. Jahmal did an excellent job, him and his team, of putting this movie together, and I'm honored that I was the subject of the film and the work that we were doing with Landon Donovan and the LA Galaxy. So looking forward to that. You can make it out. We'd love to see you there at the historic Hollywood Chinese Theater. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you, Shay, for having me on. And it was an honor to be sitting next to these amazing artists, Yinka and Jahmal.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see what I'm sharing right now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. No, thank you guys so much. Just a quick contact information on the screen for PeQue Brown on Liquid Project. You can see what he's provided, the website, www.theliquidproject.com, his email, address, and then phone number for him. And each of our panelists kind of have different things they're showing. Jahmal kind of shared his social with us as well. In Twitter, Jahmal Holland. On Instagram is Jahmal Holland. Sorry, Twitter is Jahmal J. Holland. I stand corrected there. Then Jahmal Holland for Instagram. Then Facebook is Jahmal J. Holland as well. And Jahmal, if you want to drop your number in the chat, you could do that as well. But that's the stuff. And Jahmal is very active on social, so definitely check him out there. We have Yinka's website, www.yinkasvoice.com. You can see some of the things she's doing there. Then on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, she's at Yinka's Voice as well there, and to be able to see what she's doing and follow her on those platforms. And then for us here, Wisdom for Life and Leadership, we have our email there, Wisdom for Life and Leadership @gmail.com. IG is Wisdom for Life and Leadership. And just the same thing with on YouTube and Facebook as well. And then if you for our Facebook page on for Hip Hop International, just at hiphopinternational.com for that, and you can find us on there as well. But I want to thank you all for being here today and taking the time to join us on this wonderful time together that we've had. I'll say this, that whatever we're doing artistically, whatever we're pursuing, we need the wisdom of God to help us navigate through that. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of traps, there's a lot of things you can kind of walk into, but we need that help from God more than ever before. And when I think about, just what the scripture says, to us, that wisdom, godly wisdom is pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive. It is full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. And so as you're trying to measure the decisions you're trying to make and asking God to give you that wisdom to be able to navigate, wisdom is not an abstract concept. It is something that is truly defined. Power and the wisdom of God is Christ. That's what in 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians tells us from chapter 1 and chapter 2. So I encourage you, as you're navigating through this, don't just do it alone. Seek out the wisdom of God, the people that God has put around you, and the resources that are around you. And I believe that wherever we've been called, creativity comes from God. And that's really, at the end of the day, whether it's creativity to run the business around your craft, where there's creativity for you to continue to create art that's going to impact lives and continue to do good work, as Jahmal said, and continue to do it again. The consistency, do good work not one time, but do it again. And we're gonna keep on doing that work. I want to thank my panelists, Yinka. You were great tonight. Hopefully, you guys come back. Don't run away. Jahmal and PeQue. I know I'm gonna see y'all again. So and I know we're gonna continue. So thank you all for those who were able to stay with us for this last 2 hours and 12 minutes. Hopefully it hasn't been too much of your night, but I want to thank y'all. God bless, and we'll see you guys again. I'm Shay Ola, your host this evening. Thanks. Bye now.